Good evening. There is not much doubt that the goalposts have been changed and the rules totally altered in the battle, as it often has been in British Columbia, between labour and management, private sector and public sector. And it may well be that it's time, many people will think, that the wings of the trade union movement and organised workers were really clipped. But we'll have a reaction tonight after you see Ted with the rundown.
Tonight on Webster, if the championship auto racing team has its way, this could be a sign of the times around the old expo site this summer. Vancouver City Council has already approved in principle an Indy-styled race for the North Shore of False Creek. Later with Webster, John Frascal, chairman of Championship Auto Racing Teams Incorporated. Is there any chance of stopping the Socreds from pushing their controversial labor reforms through the legislature? Slim to none, according to the Premier, and that prospect is grim news for provincial employees. Coming up with Webster, John Shields, president of the B.C Government Employees Union. But first, except for the Socreds, is anybody happy with the highly controversial labor reforms? Roy Gautier, president of the Building Trades Council, certainly isn't.
Well, the whole thing is not worth the powder to blow it to hell.
And he's in the studio with Webster.
Mr. Gautier, surely there is something in this massive new labour code, which obviously wipes out the old labour code in effect, which is good for you and your construction union workers.
No, Jack, there's nothing that we see in there that's good for the building trades or the trade union movement.
Not one single solitary
thing that we see.
You don't know all of the act because nobody does yet, but surely there is a factor which you can endorse.
I don't think there's anything in that bill as it stands right now, Jack, that we can endorse. Our lawyers have been looking into it and analysing it, and everything they come up with appears to us, section by section, to be detrimental to either the whole of the labour movement or a particular sector of the labour movement.
In other words, all the little decisions you got over the years from the Labour Board are gone and you're starting with new rules.
That's correct.
How serious is that to you? And I mean, you're an old-time union leader. How badly do you regard the situation now?
Well, I've been in the province 33 years, Jack, and I've been in the labour movement all that time. And I've never seen a piece of legislation that has the ramifications that this does for the labour movement. Insofar as the building trades are concerned, there are a few sections of this new bill which are absolutely devastating.
We'll come back to those in a moment. Now I'm going to go to you, John Shields, head of the BCGEU. There must be something in this bill which was put in for the benefit of unions.
Jack, there is not a thing that we can find that is in for the benefit of unions, and it's a terrifying kind of piece of legislation because it, for the first time in our experience anywhere in North America, does it introduce nearly dictatorial powers for a non-public, publicly elected personality, and that's the powers given to this new commissioner that embody all of the worst of wage controls and create a situation that is totally coercive to the labour.
Do you object to the fact that the new commissioner, Ed Peck, will have the power on his own, without going to the cabinet, to order back to work and 40-day cooling off periods, even if somebody's on strike?
It's terrifying. It means for most workers in the public sector that the right to strike is gone, and that people are going to be negotiating without any real ability to get a collective agreement on mutually satisfactory terms.
What will happen to either of you to an employee who does not obey a back-to-work order from the government?
That employee who doesn't obey something that Peck decrees will be fired and will not have the right of arbitration to appeal that decision.
Now, what of the powers, the extreme powers the Commissioner also has, after he has reported a strike which has been going on for 28 days to the Cabinet?
That decision, the Cabinet can bring in an order that, first of all, orders the people back to work and can ultimately impose a collective agreement on workers.
Just to arbitrarily impose a collective agreement on workers?
That is what we understand.
Is that not what many people want? A period of negotiation, and then finally, when the parties can't get together, arbitration to get it over with?
I don't think that's what people want, Jack. I don't think the employers really want that because it's a two-sided question, bargaining. It's been recognized over a long period of time. Other Other tribunals, other jurisdictions have tried the process of compulsion. It's not worked, and it's not worked in other countries, and it's not likely to work here.
What do you think of the provision whereby in certain stages of the negotiation, the commissioner can order that the employer can ask that his final offer must be voted on by the employees?
It makes a farce out of the bargaining process, Jack, because what is going to happen in practice, in the practical world of labour relations, is employers are going to produce frivolous offers. They're going to have to go back to the membership if this bill goes through, and we're going to be in a protracted and frustrating period dealing with the collective bargaining process. It will be chaos.
How do you interpret the fact that the public interest is now a certain factor, with public interest inquiry boards, and even a stage where the recommendation of the Public Interest Inquiry Board might become the final imposed solution?
It's a way, given the history that this government has used the powers of Mr. Peck and that compulsive side of the old wage controls, that they've found a new language to ensure that public sector workers can't negotiate a fair agreement and can't ensure that the government has to come to terms with that. They can appeal to their appointees, who will be government appointees, to intervene and make a decision without a publicly elected group making that decision.
But you're not suggesting this ends free collective bargaining, even though the Commissioner has certain heavy powers in the first stage and certainly on the orders of the Cabinet in the last stage. It doesn't kill collective bargaining, does it, gentlemen?
In my judgment, it does, Jack. In my judgment, it has taken away the ability of negotiators to reach an agreement at the table, and it has put all of the powers of decision-making into the hands of the government appointee, Mr. Peck.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree, Jack. That's the process that's going to take place. And my view is that employers are simply going to go through a process by and large, and they're going to eventually arrive at the point where the Commissioner takes over, and that's the process that we will be into.
Now, no strike vote can be taken unless there's good faith bargaining. How do you regard that? How do you know when they're bargaining in good faith?
Well, I think there is a tactical decision when any bargainer wants to let it be known that there's a strike vote in the offing. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's later. Now the government has used the power of legislation to tell unions when they can take a vote.
But I happen to, you know as well as I do, Roy, that there were many propaganda strike votes taken early on in the proceedings whereby the executive was given the power to accept or reject. Now, surely it's good that that's been wiped out and you can now only put a vote on a legitimate offer to your membership before you strike.
Well, it's a tactical question, Jack, and I reflect back on 1986 when the employers threw down the gauntlet for the construction industry, that simply they were going to ignore the process and unilaterally impose new wages and conditions, and we contended with that. It was known, and we had to, in that particular case, use the tactic of conducting a strike vote. The whole process of collective bargaining is a process that each party has to use their own particular resources, but not with the intention, and this should be stressed, and maybe it's forgotten, that we represent large bodies of people and there's a responsibility to those people. And there is no desire for groups of workers to go on strike unless it's the final recourse.
But take successor rights. Look at all the fuss we've had about successor rights, whereby a company will close down, attempt to start up again on a different basis, and be stuck with a union it can't afford. And they have loosened the successor rights to some degree, have they not?
Jack, I think they've thrown the successor rights away. The way that we are having that section interpreted, it no longer means that a union is going to be able to, in fact, have a collective agreement in place, even where there is a clear line between the old, shall we say, the old company and the newly established company. That's the considered opinion.
Well, they say that if it's not a substantial interest, that a man can invest in another company unless it's been legitimately bankrupt for some time, and he can set up another parallel company in the same industry, non-union. Is that not required in your industry?
Well, I think what's going to happen, Jack, in fact, is that the ability to use the expertise of management, the ability to transfer equipment, all those things that make the ingredients, as it were, of a transfer are now not going to be a factor in the unions being able to pursue successor status.
So you see all kinds of double-breasting happening?
I see the successor status creating conditions where employers can set up a new company. As far as the double-breasting, that's a separate section. And again, the clear indication is that we would have to have tailor-made a circumstance now that could be successful for a trade union applying for against the establishment of a dummy company. And that's the considered opinion of our employers' organisation.
How serious are the further restrictions on picketing? Because picketing did get out of hand in British Columbia at one time.
The picketing situation, I think, has again taken a lot of the ability of workers to bring power to the bargaining table by restricting, for example, people in a liquor store could not picket their place of employment because it would affect other people. People who work in a multi-tenant building can't exercise the right to strike because it would affect other people, and that's been prohibited by law.
But won't the public prefer the fact that the picketing can only take place at the primary place of operation, even if there are different divisions? That's one of the new radical moves in the Act.
Well, it wouldn't be bad, Jack, except that a lot of times that picketing is on private property, and the picketers are not allowed to, say, picket in a mall, and so they normally have to picket outside. If the bill also gave pickets the right to picket in front of their place of work, then it would be seen to be balanced. But every aspect of this bill is unbalanced against labor.
And we'll talk more with Roy Gautier and with John Shields after the break. The new Labour Code proposes that all hot declarations and hot goods things may be used as boycotts, but can't be used as a matter of refusal for other people to handle them, correct?
No, that's true. For example, in the Gainers dispute, which we saw last summer with this despicable behavior in Alberta, that it would have forced workers in British Columbia to handle those products.
Now they can be forced to handle those products.
Under this law.
Can you any longer insist on union label preference in supplies for the government?
We have clauses in our contract that say that the things that we wear and a number of other things have to be supplied by union employers at decent standard of work, wages rather, and that now has been struck down.
You can't give any publicity to advance votes when you take a strike vote. You can't do it local by local. You've got to do it all at once. Is that not fair?
That's correct. In that case, Jack, in our case, with the bargaining structure we have, that wouldn't be a particular concern that we have.
So, and what will it do to negotiations? Give me that again, because are you still under what is in effect the public sector? You become involved very much in this public interest inquiry board, don't you?
Yes. Yes.
What does that do to your bargaining?
Well, I think what it does is it takes away any incentive between the two negotiators at the table to reach an agreement. I think it builds into the legislation the desire for one party or the other to posture for an outside force to make a decision, and it just simply destroys the incentive to get the balance point at bargaining.
And of course, you're in effect under ability to pay.
Yes, that remains. Although they claim they're getting rid of CSP, they have built ability to pay into the new law, which will continue to restrain wages for anything that goes to arbitration. And they've built in an almost inevitable insistence that things either go to a protracted strike and then arbitration, or will go to arbitration because nobody's going to be able to reach an agreement at the table.
Is there anything in the Act which hits at your closed shop hiring hall provisions?
Yes, there are several things, Jack. I think one significant one is the ability for contractors to employ non-union apprentices and, more significantly, non-union trainees. There is a process whereby they're supposed to join the union, but the ambiguity of that section seems to us to lead to, first of all, the inroads into open shop and subsequently right to work. Similarly, I think with the provisions for interference in the union hiring hall, a freely negotiated provision with the employers we've had for untold years, that interference, in our view, is going to lead to open shop approaches.
That comes because of complaints, I presume, that there was not always fairness in hiring halls of some unions.
I think it does, Jack, but I think these things have to be taken in proportion to the thousands and thousands of people that are dispatched to the jobs that the employers are quite happy about. They have skilled people being able to be employed. They don't have to search the field. And I think even today, although employers are reluctant to give notice of it, they are quite satisfactory in the main. Certainly there are always individual instances where individual employers will cite a case they had in 1982 where something happened.
Let me add this up, and then I want an opinion from you before I go to the phones. It's a brand new labour code which in effect wipes out the old labour code and all the precedents of which you won a fair number in front of the board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It simplifies the adjudication department, which is the old labour board, so that if you break the law, the employer can sue you at once in a wildcat strike. Is that correct?
They've taken away the incentive or the keeping out of the courts, and I think they've created greater reasons for the courts to be in the business of labor relations.
The new commissioner in earlier stages can order you back to work, and you can be fired if you don't obey the cooling off period or the back to work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He has a wide selection later on after he reports to the cabinet on a major strike, 28 days, every 7 days thereafter, to appoint a fact finder, public interest inquiry board, order the matter to be settled by the form of arbitration he directs, etc.
And to reject the arbitrator's finding if it's considered not to be within the ability of the employer to pay.
But at that stage you must concede that it has to go back to be, he gets the order from the cabinet to end the matter, and then it goes back and is approved by the legislature when it's next in session.
Well, what would that mean in this session? I mean just a rubber stamp.
But does it not reflect a mood in British Columbia that it's good to have a fairly tough labour code which allows for negotiations, but when things go wrong on a major strike affecting the public interest, down comes the hammer?
Where's the record, Jack, though, on this that substantiates this? We're not a great deal different to other jurisdictions as far as work stoppage. It amazes me the quote of loss of hours through strikes and lockouts, remember, in the last period of time, 0.5 of 1%. If there were maybe more reflection on the fact that we've got almost 20% unemployment and the man hours that are lost in productivity in that sense, it might be the government's direction might be better served in looking at that.
Well, they didn't touch on non-affiliation clauses, and look at all the fuss we had down on the Expo site. You must be pleased they didn't smash the non-affiliation clause, but it only applies to construction unions.
Yes, and I think that when we say that, Jack, you'll find that they have, because they've restricted using those non-affiliation clauses strictly to the construction site, and that's to prevent a situation that we had at the Tumbler Ridge site where the whole town site was in fact under common direction and control and was essentially one construction site. They've closed the gap on us on the non-affiliation to some degree.
Jack, the difficulty with all of this is that what they are doing is setting out to hurt the economy. We recognize from the labor point of view that it's important that we have stability in labor relations. We recognize that some modification of the way we've done business with the employers and the employers with us had to change. The labor movement set out to go to the employers and try to find a different way of creating a more productive, positive environment to help the economy. We've got to restore investment to this province if we're going to see jobs come back. That's in the interest of labor people. But what we've seen is the government throwing that opportunity away, coming down with jackboots in a way of crushing the spirit of cooperation, and they will, by the way that they've intervened in this, create great harm to this economy.
How rough is it going to get?
Well, I think that we have got little alternative, Jack, but to use all the ammunition we've got. I would say that, unfortunately, it's going to get rough. And I would join with John in saying that the bad thing in that respect for all of us, recognizing that we need to stimulate the economy in this province, is that rather than go down the road that was suggested, that we try to find a way to improve stability and to bring some equity and fairness into the whole field of industrial relations. The government has wiped that out. The responsibility is at the Premier's door on this, and I think we have no alternative but to, in fact, react to it in the strongest possible way. If we can bring back a position where this legislation doesn't go forward. If there is an opportunity for all parties seriously to look at setting the approach to industrial relations on a better footing, that would serve the province, that would serve the economy, that would probably create more jobs in the long haul.
The fact is, he has introduced the public interest as a third party, even in the special boards, and he's determined that never again will be a strike lasting a long time in British Columbia, and he may have public support.
Van der Zam came into office on a promise to end confrontation. He could have done it through cooperation, and we offered him the ability to do that. What he's chosen is the route of dictatorship, of heavy-handed government state intervention to try and create stability through legislation, and you can't legislate cooperation.
Your questions to Messrs. Gautier and Shields after the break. But normal negotiation can still take place under this new system, can it not, Mr. Shields and Mr. Gautier?
Well, it's normal up to a point, but once either side of a negotiating deal realizes that there's a third party sitting there, we're going to play to the third party. And
The government was always sitting there.
the fact that there was a price to pay, either a strike or a lockout, that people knew that there was a cost, and there was no compulsion on that third party, that's the difference between this legislation and what we had before.
So
I think, Jack, the point about it all is we all subscribe, and generally the free collective bargaining process, and it's an economic factors are involved in it. The government had the powers before to move in, and the fair question to ask is if they were so concerned and they've utilized the IWA strike as a basis for this go through the legislation, they could have moved into that dispute, considered it in the public interest. They didn't move into it.
Go ahead, please. Keep your comments short tonight, please, and try and give me a flavour of whether or not you're for or against the government legislation.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed with the legislation, Jack. I would think the important ingredient would be trust, and I don't see how we're going to get it with this legislation. It's very one-sided. I saw the minister on your show. He used the word strike 4 times, never once addressing the growing problem of employer lockouts. We have the appointment of Mr. Peck, whose reputation as Bennett's hatchet man during restraint, and that has to be very offensive to labor. I mean, it's the equivalent of putting Art Cuby in there and expecting management to like it. I just don't understand, why this has to be in this manner, why they couldn't have sat down and hammered out these problems behind closed doors, because now the news is out all over the place. The message is going out to the world at large that we've got big problems. Why this couldn't have been done quietly, I don't understand.
Okie dokie, but we have had much labour trouble in the past. We all know that. We've lived through all kinds of labour disputes, and nobody has ever found an easy way to settle strikes. Perhaps this is what is needed. Perhaps this is the club that should bring the parties together.
85% of the strikes in this province, 85% of the agreements in this province are settled without strikes. We don't need this kind of legislation at all.
Except for the big ones.
That club, Jack, is simply going to bring about chaos in the industrial relations field, and I would agree with the listener, it's unwarranted, and exactly, he's pinpointed the point that concerns me is that the word is out again that we are into some kind of a turmoil regarding legislation and labor relations, and that's going to immediately be detrimental and apparently contrary to what the government's intention was.
Go ahead, please.
Hi. First of all, I'm completely against the legislation, and my question is to Mr. Gautier. Yesterday, Mr. Matkins said that a man could not be a controller of both a union construction company and a non-union. Hypothetically, could he not be an owner of a union construction company and set up a non-union construction company in his wife's name?
I think that happens now, and I think that under this new provision, if it goes through, that ability will clearly be there. It will be very easy for any union.
I'm told that only a minority interest will be allowed, and only if the operation is a clean, obvious, non-union one. But that's a question of interpretation, isn't it? Thank you. Yep. Next one. Go ahead, please.
To Mr. Gautier, please.
Yep.
I think, first of all, that some of the changes to the labor code that are directed at the construction industry were inevitable. because some of the intransigence on the part of the Building Trades Council has resulted in a very sudden growth of the non-union sector. And you've sort of sat by and watched long-established union contractors close their doors, and the non-union market has just grown dramatically.
I think that the listener is relating to an economic circumstance. The record shows that whilst there's certainly been more aggression on the part of non-union contractors, the industry, period, whatever the status, union or non-union, is at 50% of the capacity it was in 1981.
But during this
slowdown
in the economic circumstances, are you prepared to just sit by and watch your members work on non-union jobs while long-established union contractors have to shut their doors?
Well, I think I can relate to that, but we're dealing with it very quickly. The force of circumstance for individuals as individual people, after being unemployed for 2 years, some of those individuals have to make a terrible choice.
The irony of that is that the government that says it favors the freedom of the marketplace to determine the conditions there is bringing in heavy-handed legislation regulating in such a way as to determine the outcome in a certain favor. And they are acting completely contradictory to what they say is their view.
They're acting as a government of the right-hand side of this political spectrum.
Very heavy-handed.
They're going to make it tough for unions to make unreasonable demands and go on unreasonable strikes.
They are wanting to say they are for free enterprise, but they are restricting people to negotiate freely in the marketplace.
But to them, unions aren't free enterprise. They're a monopoly and restraint of trade. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm really incensed and disappointed with this legislation, I think like many people in this province. And I would like, my mind is quite fresh of the Kelowna Accord. Should this strike, and I can see this happening, though it seems like a dirty word to say general strike, but should there be a general strike in this province? Can these labor leaders, the two of them that I see there and the other ones in this province, like Mr. Monroe, can they deliver to the workers, or are they going to turn around and crush our spirit like they did in the 1983?
Well, I'll respond to that, Jack. I don't think there was any crushing of spirit. It was a judgment call that was made at that point in time, and of course there'll be inquests on that for many years to come. This particular situation we're into now, there will be a program developed through the BC Federation of Labour and the Labour Movement, and that program will be carried out. The membership will have an opportunity to vote on that program. That democratic process will take place. And the membership, with the leadership giving the lead, will in fact be able to dictate where the program goes on the fight back.
Yeah, but no, please, no talk of general strike. You've got to understand the legislation first and see how it works, because there are no major contracts up until next year. Until what? Next year.
If I may, Jack, you're dwelling principally on the matter of the dispute resolution, but I think from our standpoint, the more difficult and the more long-term problems we have will be with the adjudication and the whole wholesale turnover of the labour code.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt there's an anti-union tilt to the whole thing. Maybe it corrected the redresses of '73 in a free market economy.
Well, in 1973, in the House, both the Socreds and the New Democrats voted in favor of that bill almost unanimously. They had all-party assent to it because the NDP had taken the time to get consensus on a piece of legislation. This is very one-sided, and it will not get our assent.
Wrong one. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Jack. I'd just like to make a comment. I've been a union person all my life. I've been to 3 different unions, IWA, the UFCW, and now with the Teamsters. And I am very glad that the union hiring hall thing is going to go. Because time and time again, I've seen friends and relatives of business agents go right around the union hiring hall system and get jobs over people that should have.
Well, just a minute. First of all, they haven't wiped out the union hiring halls, have they? They've opened the door for some employees to come straight in from outside, ignoring the hiring hall in the way of apprentices and trainees.
That's correct.
Hiring halls are still there, still untouched.
Yes.
That's fair enough. Got to keep it right. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack, I'm sorry to say, but I think that a general strike is inevitable if the Socreds do not tone down or repeal this legislation. It's totally repressive, and EDPEC's scope of authority is frightening for a non-elected official. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. Well, I think I'll leave the discussion there for tonight until it gels a little bit more clearly in everybody's mind. But your basic fears are too much power for the government, whittling away at the powers of the union, taking away many things you won in front of the Labour Board, and you're scared witless of the ease of double-breasting to further wipe out unionised construction firms, apart from your objections to the overall bill.
Yes, that's principally it, Jack. Yeah, the introduction of open shop and right to work.
We have offered to the government the opportunity to sit down and work out in a calm and rational fashion a system that would work and which we could both employer and union agree on. If they stop the legislation, pull it out of this headlong rush through the House, and give the professionals in the field of labor relations a chance to really solve the problem.
But you know you're dreaming. You know this is the Van der Zalm thrust behind the Labour Code, and even the employers will admit they got a lot of what they wanted in the code.
In other words, Jack, the Premier is saying full steam ahead and to hell with the torpedoes, and that's the way I see it. That is the problem, because all sound reasoning, the editorial in The Sun as late as tonight, is laying the thing out in a fashion that I see. And clearly we're heading for confrontation, which is none of our making, none of our choosing. And again, I say that responsibility lies right at the door of the Premier of this province.
I think we're being betrayed. I think the spirit that he brought in, which to end confrontation, he has turned around and without cause or reason has created a situation where confrontation is going to be the order of the day in the same Bennett style and perhaps worse.
My thanks to you two gentlemen. We'll be at it again in the weeks to come.
Jack.
I'm going to have a change of pace after the break. John W. Frascal is from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and he's the chairman of CART, not Horse and Cart, Championship Auto Racing Teams Incorporated, which is what?
That's the governing body of IndyCar racing in North America.
And you're the guy that wants to bring the Indy races to Vancouver.
Well, I'm the guy that's here to see if that's possible. Actually, the city and provincial government, along with Molson, are the ones that want to bring it here.
Now, why would you want to bring it to Vancouver?
Well, I think you have a beautiful place, and I think that we're interested in that. I think that it fits our marketing plan. It's a very important city in North America, and that's we'll see what we can do.
Just a minute. How many Indy-type races are there in North America at the moment?
There are 15 in Canada. There's one in Toronto in the middle of July. We had our first race there last year, very successful event. And there's 14 other ones in the United States, including the Indianapolis 500. We just got through at the Long Beach Grand Prix last weekend near Los Angeles.
Would this be a kind of imitation Indy we would have in Vancouver, just a kind of two-bit imitation of Indy?
Absolutely not.
Well, prove to me that it wouldn't be a two-bit imitation.
Well, it counts just as much for the championship as the Indianapolis 500. The same drivers, Mario Andretti, Danny Sullivan, the same drivers will drive here that drive at the Indy 500.
What about Fittipaldi?
Emerson Fittipaldi, he'll be here.
Fittipaldi.
He's one of your favorites, isn't he, Jack?
Yeah, and so is the other guy, Unser.
Al Unser.
Al Unser. What's the prize money?
The prize money, the average prize money is slightly over $1 million in our races this year.
Listen, before we go on any further, Elaine McKay of our newsroom did a good little piece about the possibility with a race car driver, not at race car speeds. Let's look at it and see, give people a flavor of what might happen in Vancouver.
Good idea.
So, if the current plan holds, this is what the course will look like, with cars driving clockwise around the stadium on Pacific Boulevard, through the expo site just before the Canby Street Bridge, and back to Pacific at Drake. We try a quick lap of the circuit with race driver Tony Morris at the wheel, but our route has to be backwards, since the city won't waive one-way streets for us.
Nice area as we come through here, 135, 140 mile an hour, braking right down into virtually 10 miles an hour into first gear, back out again, and be an interesting area for spectators to watch from, actually. This stretch here, they'll be coming out of quite a tight turn and going down Pacific, and they get around 150, 160 mile an hour. Now we're just going to pass Drake, and we'll do a left-hand turn, but actually the track will be coming back up a little bit of a hill out of Expo and do a right-hand turn down Pacific the opposite way to the we've just come.
Squealing tires is about as exciting as we can get here. But 10 months from now, the road around BC Place could look more like this.
Now, where do you stand on official permission for the City of Vancouver to give you all the preparations, reverse the streets and block it off?
I met with the mayor on Monday, and I met with provincial officials today in Victoria, and I told them that if a race was going to take place in 1988, it had to be consummated in the next 60 days, and they felt they could do that.
Next 60 days?
By mid-June.
And then you would have it here what time in 1988?
The dates we're looking at would be the middle part of June of 88 or the 1st of October of 88.
All right, what kind of draw did, first of all, have we got a suitable track? That was one of the tentative tracks.
I'm generally satisfied with it. I've suggested some modifications to about 25% of it, and they indicated, the provincial people today indicated that would be no problem.
How much money do you have to put up to guarantee this thing? Because you've got to make all the changes and pay for them, and any damages that happen, you've got to fix, I presume.
Well, the first year cost of an event like this would be approximately $5 million.
Out of your pocket?
No.
Out of whose pocket?
Out of the promoter, the organizer, Molson, and I assume whatever support that they get from the city and the province.
How many people a day did you draw in Toronto?
The city of Toronto had a maximum of attendance allowed of 60,000 because of the residential area nearby, and they sold out prior to the race. Next year they've raised the attendance limit to 80,000.
Now, do you see any problems about racing, laying out a course which would, incredible noise, practicing at night time, incredible danger, people getting killed all over the place?
No. It's very pleasant noise. It's a very good whine.
Vroom,
right,
vroom.
right. And it's an extremely safe sport. We have not had a serious accident. We've had one serious accident in the 9-year history of kart. And technology is at its utmost in our sport, and it's very safe.
Now, the sponsor has to put up all what?
The sponsor has to prepare the race course, pay for the capital improvements of the circuit. Of course, they have to put up the prize money, and they have to do the promotions, and of course they get that back from selling tickets and hot dogs and sponsorships and that type of thing.
And then, of course, you've got the runoff areas and the proper crash barriers.
Well, of course, that's the safety system. That not only protects our drivers, but it protects the spectators.
So all in all, what do you think it would do to Vancouver?
Well, it's estimated that it would probably bring an amount of excess of $30 million into the community.
For how long would you have to have all these major streets and circuits blocked off before the event took place?
I was looking at it today, and it appears that the streets would be blocked off probably from late Thursday night until late Sunday night.
And racing through all that time?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are the race times.
And they don't have a trial run of the place?
They have, no. On a temporary circuit like this, that would be impossible.
Well, a guy like Andretti, are the big names sure to come?
Oh, absolutely. All of the same drivers that will be at the Indianapolis 500 would be here in Vancouver.
So you reckon it would draw how many people? You'd say 60,000 people a race day?
I would think that if we could not get close to that figure, we're probably in the wrong market. And I would guess that from what I heard today, I would guess that would be attainable.
I forgot to ask you, the speeds they'll reach in these races round these little traffic islands.
Well, I looked at it yesterday, and I would estimate the top speeds would be somewhere around 190 miles an hour.
Would that compare with Indy itself?
Of course, Indy is a circle type of a track, an oval track, and those speeds go up to about 220 miles an hour.
But we could get to 190?
Absolutely.
What kind of cars won it last time?
Well, the cars are the basic Indy 500 car, open wheel, open cockpit cars, and they're Lola Marches, made in England, and those are our most competitive cars.
Yeah, they're not like the kind you see in the European road races. With the teams.
Oh yeah, very similar, very similar.
Well, John, how long have you been in the race business?
I've been chairman of CART since 1980.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney.
You're a lawyer?
I absolutely am.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now, just for a change from all that labor stuff. Do you want the Indy 500, do we call it that?
You call it, I think the name is the Molson Indy.
Well, there you go again, another free plug. Do you want to go through the agonies of the damned with the Molson Indy 500 in the heart of downtown Vancouver, on a course which is how long?
1.8 miles.
1.8 miles, for 3 solid days in the middle of 1988, to bring all these big names up here and give us how much in tourism benefit?
Over $30 million, I estimate.
Canadian.
Canadian. and the attendance is also Canadian, 60,000.
All right, tell me yes or no. Let's not run a poll on the Molson Indy 500 on Webster to see if anybody wants us to have it after the break.
This is my first visit here.
Just a minute, you're not committed yet, John Carp.
Absolutely not, Jack Webster. I'm not committed.
Well, when are you likely to be committed?
I said before it's that we have to have the thing done within the next 60 days or it'll be too late for
So I'm acting as your lobbyist, your pressure man.
Absolutely. You're a good one.
In that case, give me a quick yes or no if you can, and a very short remark, so we'll see if it goes against them. Are you for or against the Indy 500 type race in Vancouver?
I'm definitely for it. I think it'll bring millions of dollars into the...
Good, thank you. Are you for or against it?
I'm against it.
You're against it, thank you, ma'am. See? Are you for or against it?
Oh, I'm an avid person, Grandma.
You're too old to go to races.
No way.
Okay, you're for it, Granny. How about you? Are you for or against it?
I'm for it. I think Vancouver needs all the excitement it can get.
Okay, 3-1, you're winning. Of the fate recalls. Are you for or against it? Oh, I took the long call. Are you for or against it?
For it.
You're for it. Hey, are you for or against it?
Let's go for it. If Vancouver can handle 6 months of Expo, they can handle 3 days of race cars.
Thank you. Are you for or against it? You! Come on, waking up there. Come on. Not there.
Against it, because that alternative there is definitely for through traffic to beat all the city lights. So I'm definitely against it unless
Thank you.
He said
against. Good. He said against it, so we can cut him off. Go ahead from Campbell River.
Properly merchandised, it would bring megabucks into BC, and we need it.
Thank you very much indeed. Are you for it? Oh, I lost that one. Haven't done this for such a long time. Are you for or against it?
I'm absolutely for it.
Absolutely for it. Thank you very much. Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it.
Thank you very much. Next one. Are you for or against it?
For it by all means.
For it by all means. Thank you. Are you for it or against it?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. I'll just stop and give you the bad news. So far, there are 10 for it and 2 against it.
Well, that's a good sign.
Is that what you expect?
That's what I expected.
Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it all the way.
Thank you very much. How about you?
I am definitely for it.
Thank you. That's another one.
Is a recording.
Oh, it's a recording. Is the recording for it or against it? Are you for it or against it?
For it.
You're for it. Thank you very much. Are you... I don't see any numbers. Are you for it or against it?
For it.
Thank you. Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it.
Thank you. Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it. I think it's marvelous.
Good, that's wonderful. Are you for it or against it? Come on, come on.
Let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Okay. We're waking up there. Can't stand delays. Are you for it or against it? Come on, come on. Hung up on me. Well, I'll put that down as doubtful. Are you for it or against it? Hello.
Hello, I'm for it.
Good for you, boy. How old are you?
35.
Have you ever driven a race car?
No, but I sure love to.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye. He's for it, too. Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it.
Thank you very much. You want to score now, Big John?
Yes, I do.
20 for it and 2 against it.
I think
this is getting boring.
We may have 100,000 people here.
Yeah, it could be. Are you for it or against it?
For it.
Good. How old are you?
14.
I suspected that.
Again, if you need assistance, dial your operator. Please hang up now.
He's for it.
Is a recording.
He's still there, isn't he? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Thank you very much. Next one. Are you for it?
Long overdue. Definitely for it. 110%.
Thank you very much. Where are you speaking from?
Slave Lake, Alberta.
Slave Lake, Alberta.
Yes, got you on the
Cancom.
satellite system here.
Okay, are you for it or against it?
I'm for it.
You're for it. What are you doing up in Slave Lake?
Working in the media, believe it or not.
Well, I'm glad you got a free phone call through to me.
Yeah, it's nice talking to you. Watch you as often as I can.
Thank you. Do you good. Keep watching. Are you for it or against it?
Kitsilano, BC is for it.
Oh, that's good. I'll have to stop and give you a count while the lines light up again. That's 25 to
25
2.
to 2. We'll have to talk to those two people again.
Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it.
Good. How about you?
We're for it.
I'm only taking one vote from that household. Are you for it or against it?
Well, can I say one thing first?
Yes.
Yes, I was just wondering, are they going to get that ancient law repealed about having automotives to do with liquor to do with automotive racing?
We discussed that today.
Molson?
We discussed that today in Victoria, and I'm assured that that will be handled within that 60-day time period.
Just a moment, please. You mean you've got to get special permission to get the booze barons to sponsor it?
Yeah, I think right now there's some type of ancient law on the books that prevents that from happening.
Yes,
and,
there is.
Yeah, and I understand that that will be not a major obstacle.
Were you assured by Molson's or by an independent at a high level?
I was insured by an independent at a high level.
You want to tell me who?
Well, I met with the Minister of Economic Development and the Minister of Tourism today, and they felt that they could get that problem handled.
Thank you. Are you for it? Are you for it or against it?
I'm going for it.
What?
Go for it.
Go for it. Good, thanks. He's got a bad cold tonight. How about you? Are you for it or against it?
Hello.
Yes.
I'm 66 years of age. It's about time Vancouver grew up. I'm for it.
Good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm for it.
Good. How about you?
I'm for it. It's about time the politicians realize what kind of money can be brought in the province.
Good. How about you?
I'm for it.
Good, thank you. How about you?
Again.
Thank you, ma'am. How about you?
Yes, it put us on the map.
Thank you. How about you?
For it.
Good. How about you?
I'm for it.
How old are you?
13.
Thank you. How about you?
After 7 months of the Canucks, I think it'll be a shot in the arm.
Thank you very much. That came from Terrace, BC. Who's on 10? I'll just try 10. Nanaimo, go ahead. Are you for it or against it? Hello there, Nanaimo. He's gone. Are you for it or against it?
Definitely for it. One of the best sports you can watch.
Thank you. Gets kind of dull on television, doesn't it?
Sure does.
No, I'm talking about motor racing on television. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm in favor. It's been too quiet since we've had the fireworks at Expo. We need more noise.
More excitement. Thank you very much. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 40 in favor and 3 against. And time for a couple more calls? Yes, I have. Are you for it or against it? You there?
Go for it.
You're for it. Okay, 41. Last one. John Frascal, chairman of CART from Bloomfield.
Bloomfield Hills, Michigan.
Thanks for brightening up my evening. We'll look forward to seeing you again. I'll be back after the break. By the way, I'm for it too. John Crosby, Minister of Transport from Ottawa, the bright John Crosby, and Bill MacDonald, who's a Labour lawyer on the management side about the changes to the Labour Code tomorrow at 5 p.m. precisely.